This particular phone only rings in a serious crisis. Keep it in the hands of a man who's proven himself responsible. Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd.
Only rarely do you have an election that redefines one or both parties and sets the tone for decades to come. That's 1964.
Daddy, he knew that there were things that needed to be done in this country. As he said, now I have the opportunity and I'm going to make the most of it.
Barry Goldwater was a jet-jawed, handsome Arizona senator and a conservative who spoke with clarity and decisiveness. A deeply principled man who would stand up to the Eastern liberal establishment and especially who would take a tough line in the Cold War.
But appease an aggressor and eventually you'll have to go to war with him.
The thing about Goldwater's rhetoric that scared people was that Goldwater would kick off a nuclear war. You didn't want Goldwater's finger next to that button.
We have the guts to make our intentions clear. So clear they don't need translation or interpretation.
Senator Goldwater was not the, quote, extremist, unquote, that he was painted. Some of the people behind him were, but he wasn't.
In 1964, it was the grassroots in the Republican Party that changed the GOP forever. Almost the entire Republican establishment, either publicly or privately, abhorred Goldwater, didn't want him to be the nominee, and then really didn't support him when he became the nominee.
It awoke a sleeping giant. People who were tired of government telling them what to do and living their lives, and all of a sudden Goldwater brought them out.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
Johnson was a person who felt the government had to be active in people's lives in order for you to get what you needed. Private industry, private sector wasn't going to do all of it, couldn't do all of it.
If you look at the raft of laws that he passed in the subsequent year or two, it's enormous. It's most of the fabric now of our social policy.
When Johnson went with the Civil Rights Act, remember, winning in the biggest landslide in the history of the country, we lost 5 southern states.
Certainly all the polarization we're talking about now has a lot to do with that realignment of the country, with the South becoming Republican. That '64 election really changed the country.
It was a momentous election in a lot of ways. It transformed the way that politicians talked to their electorate through their advertising.
Now, children should have lots of vitamin A and calcium, but they shouldn't have any strontium-90 or cesium-137.
The Daisy commercial was born. They kicked up the notch of dirty politics.
We must either love each other or we must die.
That's become a classic of how to define your opponent.
From that moment on, the amount of time, resources, and money that was spent on television ads just kept escalating.
You look back at all the election maps and you see what really caused a realignment. What caused people to think differently about their partisan identification? And boy, it was 1964.